We're back again, folks. We're halfway through our previews of all 32 teams as we get even closer to the kickoff of the 2024 NFL season. It's the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast with Erik Stenholm and Joey Moore. Let's dive into the AFC North and AFC West before a quick spin around the league. Obviously, the number one story of the day is the JJ McCarthy injury, but I really don't want to talk about that. So let's save that for the end of the pod because I'd like to be happy for at least another hour. Let's start with the AFC North, Joey. Last year's number one seed, the Baltimore Ravens, they come in with an over-under at 10.5, heavily shaded to the over, minus 280 to make the playoffs, 11-1 to make the Super Bowl. Last year, they were the number 4 offense in the league, number 1 defense in the league. They lost their defensive coordinator, McDonald, over to Seattle, where he's taken up the head coaching role. Looking at the offense, Derrick Henry, kind of the only significant addition. They lost 3 of their starting offensive linemen from last year. But as the 49ers do, Baltimore builds through draft and development. Basically, this entire team on defense and offense is just built through draft and development. They don't spend big money in free agency. They don't make big splashy trades. I have them going 12-5. It's a little worse than they were last year, a little better than what Vegas has them at. I just think you take the infrastructure there with Jackson and Harbaugh. You expect wins as long as Jackson's healthy, which is a little bit of a big if. But Joey, let's start with your record for Baltimore and your outlook for them in 2024.
Yeah, I got them 12-5 also. Just like you said, I mean, they're built well from head coach, quarterback, at least for the regular season, if he stays healthy. Yeah, they didn't really – I don't think they lost too much adding Derrick Henry. I'm not going to say that it's not Derrick Henry in his prime. There's a reason why Tennessee let him go. But, yeah, you can envision that being a horrific run offense. Mark Andrews is a really good tight end when he's healthy. Yeah, I really like Baltimore. They're going to be really good again. They're going to be a tough place to play too in Baltimore, especially late in November, December. But yeah, I think they're probably the safest bet in the division.
I think they've led the league in yards per carry something like 4 or 5 seasons in a row, and that's just because of the way they run the offense. The only really significant change on the team is, like we said, Derrick Henry's now going to take pretty much all of the reps in the backfield because it looks like some of their other guys in the running back room are injured. Keaton Mitchell, who was awesome in like the 2.5 games he played last year, looks like he's going to start the season on the pup. And then on defense, it's Zach Orr, the new defensive coordinator. He was the linebackers coach. So again, just like with the players, with the coaches, they just promote from within. Roquan Smith was one of the best players in football in 2023. They didn't really sign any free agents to bolster the defense. They're just like, hey, this is the Raven way. And until I see otherwise, they're going to be competitive in every game. So that obviously a really tough start to the season going to Kansas City. But if they win that one, they're going to be off to the races. So ho-hum for Baltimore, another playoff appearance, in my opinion, likely another AFC North title with one of the 3 or 4 best head coaches in football still there. Let's go to Cincinnati. You want to talk about a high variance team. It's all about health here. The schedule sets up nicely for them. I can really see them being successful. But again, last year they were completely snake bitten, not just with Burrow's injuries, but injuries all over the team. Cincinnati's over-under set at 10.5. They're minus 260 to make the playoffs, 16-1 to make the Super Bowl. I am going to take some flyers on them, 9-1 to win the AFC, 16-1 to win the Super Bowl, just because I think the ceiling is so unbelievably high with Burrow and that complement of offensive talent. But again, last year, 16th on offense, 21st on defense. That's not that bad considering they only had Burrow for a few games. They lost so many offensive line starts. On defense, they had horrible injuries in the secondary, and I believe their pass defense was in the bottom 5 after all of those injuries really took their toll. So it's going to be on offense, Chase Brown and Zach Moss in the backfield as a tandem replacing Joe Mixon. I think that's an upgrade. If you watch Chase Brown in the preseason and then in limited action last year, that dude has burst. I think he's going to be great. And then Zach Moss will be kind of their Jamal Williams goal line back. They added Trent Brown and Gesicki as well. It was an already stacked offense if everyone's healthy. So, Joey, I have them going 11-6 off of the strength of the offense. I think the defense will be okay, nothing special. Where do you have the Bengals ending up at the end of the 2024 season?
I got them going 10-6. I don't feel
10-7.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. 10 and
Come
7.
on. Welcome to 2024.
What is that? $1 in the schedule jar for
Yep.
effing that up. But yeah, I am not nearly as high on them as I've been probably the last couple of years. I just, number one, health. All of their top guys just don't seem to play together nearly as much as you hope they would. Burrow, especially, major injury last year. He starts off slow every year too. I swear the last couple of years, like week one, he's had like the game in Pittsburgh, he threw like 5 picks or something. And eventually that comes back to bite him. I mean, I know they got the Patriots, looks like week 1, but then they go to Kansas City. And I mean, that's a week 2 game that could decide playoff seeding. Yeah, I hate to keep harping on it, but weird vibes.
Yeah, weird vibes there. I think after the 2021 season where they went to the Super Bowl, there was this, oh my gosh, Zach Taylor and Lou Anarumo are actually pretty decent coaches. And then that all kind of came back to earth over the last 2 seasons. Yes, the Bengals are very good, and they almost went to the Super Bowl in 2022, but their overall numbers have dropped significantly both of those years, just because mostly of injuries, but also I think the league kind of figuring out Anarumo's defense. If you look at that Cincy defense, 28th ranked pass D last year. They added Sheldon Rankins, Von Bell, Geno Stone. I think they're improved from 21st last year, but again, middle of the pack. So if you have a top 5-6 offense and a middling defense, I think 11-6, like I said, 10-7, like you said, that seems about right. This team is too good to not make the playoffs if everybody's healthy, but I think that top end that they were at in 2021 and the very end of 2022, I don't know if they can get there with this defensive roster. So we both have them making the playoffs, but not winning the division. Next, let's go to Cleveland. The Browns, they're over under set at 8.5. They're plus 125 to make the playoffs, 45-1 to make the Super Bowl. Let's just say it off the top. Jameis Winston is apparently playing very well in training camp, to the point where they're panicking about the Deshaun Watson situation. Yes, there's been some health concerns. Obviously, with him, there's always off-field concerns, but his performance since he's been there in Cleveland, when he's been on the field, has been lacking. Jameis Winston apparently is really fitting in well into this Stefanski offense that leans heavily on play action, something that Deshaun Watson didn't really do in Houston. They were a shotgun Bill O'Brien offense that was kind of tailored to what he did at Clemson. This is not a very good fit, in my opinion, for Watson. It's a cold climate. He's never playing in the shotgun. It's a run-first, offensive line-heavy team. It's not exactly a great fit for Winston either, but all the reports out of camp is that Watson is having one of the worst camps of any quarterback in the NFL. So that's a situation to monitor. I said I have him going 8-9 just on the strength of that unbelievable defense. So last year, I mean, Jim Schwartz, I've criticized him in the past. He's a bit of an oddball, but that dude knows defense. They were number 1 in total defense, but unlucky enough, number 14 in scoring defense. That's mostly because that offense, especially in the weeks where they had Dorian Thompson-Robinson and PJ Walker starting games, they were just completely behind the 8 ball. But I think this team has, again, a top 5 defense this year. I think it's absolutely elite as long as Myles Garrett stays healthy. I just don't think that situation at quarterback is tenable enough for them to even consider making the playoffs. Last year was a bit of an anomaly with that Flacco miracle run. Joey, do you see any magic for Cleveland again this year, or is it back to the pack?
I mean, I think Cleveland's a really good team. It just sucks that their quarterback sucks. It's kind of like it's almost like he's been so just not even available. And then on top of it, when he's been available, I mean, if you squint real hard, average, like forget, I mean, he got the biggest contract in NFL history, and the Cleveland Browns are getting nothing. I mean, Jameis Winston looks good because he's taking reps after Deshaun Watson right now. I mean, it's almost like Deshaun's been so far beyond what they hoped that it's like it's not even getting talked about. Like it's wild. It's wild to me because
it should be talked about more, but it's not, because we've been so conditioned by the last 2 years.
I mean, it's almost like the fact he took that year off and like he's had all the off-field stuff, like, oh, that's why. It's like he's had plenty of time to figure it out. Again, like it's I think I mean I can't get off my couch and do it, but like for most quarterbacks, good coaching, good team, like if you have some talent, like you should be able to function.
It's an ideal situation if Chubb comes back and is healthy. You have elite running backs, elite offensive line. Look at the wide receiver core. You got Cooper and now Jerry Jeudy. Good tight ends. Njoku is a hell of a player. I was
I think he's
actually at
underrated.
the game last year that he played in LA, and he basically dominated that game. Flacco just had to throw the ball up for him. I mean, everything's there for him. Like, why does he suck? Is the question.
I think it's a really good team. I think with good, like above average quarterback play, I really do think they could challenge Baltimore for the division, but I just don't think they're going to get it. And it's going to take some large cojones to bench Deshaun Watson.
Mm-hmm.
He might make it easy on him if he gets hurt, if he's not available. But if he is, yeah, I could absolutely see them going to Jameis Winston, and I could even see them. I mean, they got Tyler Huntley, and I mean every time. Well,
Former Pro Bowler Tyler Huntley.
exactly. So, but no, I think he'll be healthy enough to play, and then not play very well. I got him 8-9 too. They should be better.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable. So you look at last year it was a top 5 all-time pass defense by Cleveland. They were 4th all-time in total pass defense. They add Quentin Jefferson and Jordan Hicks. You look at that defense and you're like, okay, top 5, top 7 unit at worst. You look at that offense, you go, probably one of the 5 or 7 best offensive lines in the NFL. Wide receiver, good enough. Tight end, pretty dynamic. Like, man, they went 10-7 with mostly Joe Flacco last year. Like, this is a crying shame. I think Kevin Stefanski, I mean, hats off to him for doing the job he's done. The front office has brought in a good collection of talent, but that Watson deal has basically
Front office also brought in Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, they put
actually
him in
I'll be a little bit easier on the GM. That might have been an owner move.
That's true. There is rumors
that might have been
Haslam pushed that
he
through.
just said, because you don't even bring that check to the owner unless he's got a pretty good idea.
It's one of the all-time what ifs. I mean, Cleveland, swapping out Baker Mayfield for him and adding whatever $240 million to the payroll after Baker got 1 year $16 million or something from Tampa Bay. It's an all-time what if. Like, yes, the Baker situation had probably run its course in Cleveland, but if you get what Baker did for Tampa Bay last year in Cleveland, maybe that team goes 13-4. It's really unbelievable. Let's look at Pittsburgh. The ultimate Tomlin coaching performance last year, where they snuck into the playoffs with 0 quarterback play. Obviously, Pickett was terrible. They went to the quote-unquote electric Mason Rudolph in the final few games, caught lightning in a bottle, a.k.a. they got super lucky and played really good defense, somehow found their way into a playoff game. I think this is the year that Tomlin finally has a losing season. We say it every year. It never happens. The dude is an unbelievable head coach, and this is what he specializes in. Having a mediocre roster and especially a mediocre quarterback. The final 2 years of Roethlisberger, Pickett. This year it's Russ and Justin Fields, and somehow scraping by to make the playoffs. I am putting myself out on a limb here for criticism. I have him going 7-10. He's never been worse than 8-8. It's a risk to do it, but they were 27th on offense, 6th on defense last year. Yes, the defense will continue to be good. They added Patrick Queen, Dante Jackson, Deshaun Elliott as new starters. They're always going to be solid on defense. 27th on offense last year. They fire Matt Canada, who was maybe the most hated man in the history of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And who do they bring in to replace him as offensive coordinator? Arthur Smith. Is that really going to solve your problems there? The guy who took so much criticism in Atlanta for not getting the ball to Pitts, not getting the ball to Bijan Robinson, always favoring these, different players who the team didn't spend any draft capital on, got him run out of town, nothing but losing seasons as a head coach. Yes, he had success as an offensive coordinator in Tennessee, but I mean, handing the ball off to Derrick Henry 380 times is pretty damn simple. I don't like that hire. I don't like the offense at all, whether it's Russ, whether it's Fields. I have them going 7-10. Joey, what do you have for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year?
Yeah, I think this is it. I don't think they're definitely not over 500. And now with 17 games, you can't be 500. So 7-10 also for me. I think their quarterback room is worse than it was last year. I mean,
Okay.
we called Justin Fields a weapon. I mean, he might be. You don't want to say your quarterback's a weapon. You want to say your quarterback's a quarterback. And Russell Wilson, I just
got to give him credit. Horrendous in 2022, mid in 2023. Like, okay,
well, he's going to the perfect mid team. I mean, mid infinity. I also just think the personality dynamic of that is going to be weird. It's because it's going to be super weird to have Russ as a backup if he is.
Quote from Mike Tomlin: "We are going to evaluate the quarterback situation on a weekly basis." Has that ever worked in the history of the National Football League?
Nope. Nope. Not on good teams. No.
This isn't Brady Bledsoe.
No. And yeah, I just think it's just going to be a whole lot of average. A whole lot of average. Everywhere. You're right. Arthur Smith upgrade. I don't know.
Listen to the final stretch of games for them. So this is Pittsburgh after their bye. So they go at Washington. Okay, let's call that a win. Baltimore at Cleveland, at Cincinnati, Cleveland at Philadelphia, at Baltimore, Kansas City, Cincinnati. God help.
That could be 8 in a row.
That could be. I mean, my point is the reason, and by the way, this is going to be one of my best bets of the season, Pittsburgh under 8.5. That second half, I don't care if you have prime Bill Belichick and prime Tom Brady. That is very, very difficult to do. Okay, let's start with the Baltimore game. Home against Baltimore. It's a slugfest. Maybe you can find a way to win that 13-10 with Russ or Justin Fields, the quarterback. At Cleveland, last year had one of the 5 best passing offenses of all time. Miserable place to play. At Cincinnati, going against Joe Burrow, probably going to be a Hall of Famer. Then Cleveland and that vaunted defense again. At Philadelphia in December, probably not going to be all that fun. At Baltimore in December, probably not going to be all that fun. Kansas City at home, good for you. It's on Christmas Day. You're going to get fucking killed. And then Cincinnati. Like, that stretch at the end of the season is one of the worst stretches I've ever seen an NFL team have to go through. So I think they're probably somewhere around like 5-5, 5-6 halfway through the year, and then they may just lose out the rest of the way.
Yeah, very possible. Very possible. Although I do think Pittsburgh always wins a couple of games every year. You're just like, how did they win that game?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I they're in no man's land as a franchise, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tomlin's
too hard. Do you agree with the extension for Tomlin?
No, I was just about to say, it's hard. It's hard to get rid of the guy if he doesn't want to, move on himself. But, I mean, say what you want. Patriots basically fired Bill Belichick.
Mm-hmm. And basically let Tom Brady walk. Like, this is the NFL.
What happened to you?
Yeah.
And I know that's not what they like to do, where they keep hearing they've had like 3 head coaches ever or, whatever it is. Like, I just think, I don't know, like it's getting to the point where like you can't say you've never had a losing season if like every season is like 8-8 and 9-8.
And you make the playoffs and stand no chance on the road in your playoff game.
Like I just it becomes a really weird thing to celebrate. Like
we made it and we got crushed by Buffalo. Woohoo. The year before that, we made it. We got Ben one more game in the NFL, and he got absolutely crushed by Kansas City.
I just like if it is weird to me, like just the whole narrative around like Mike Tomlin is like people still argue, and like I really like Mike Tomlin, but like he's a top 5 coach. I'm like, again, all these people come to say top 5 and like name your 5. I'm like, you got 12 guys in your top 5. Like you have to nail it down.
Yeah,
like top 5. Coach like
Reed, Shanahan, McVay.
It's just like what I was gonna say is like him, like he's like a great coach, and then you have a guy like Mike McCarthy who's won 12 games like 3 straight years. Like that guy's a bum. Like just that's in there. Like
yeah,
and it's like it's I just sometimes it's like it's not Mike McCarthy. Like Dan Quinn's defense gave up a shitload of points. Playoff game last, like Dak Prescott wets himself. Like, sometimes you can, like Mike Tomlin, like I know you have offensive coordinators, like you're either hiring them or like you just don't know enough. You're like, do you have anything to do with the offense? Like, again,
we've said it for since we started this podcast. Mike Tomlin is the perfect coach for taking a below average team and getting them to 9 or 10 wins. He is no longer, and hasn't been for a decade, a coach who can take you to the Super Bowl. It's just his specialty
wrong,
now.
Even when he won because he won. Yeah, he won the Super. He was the coach.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah,
16
like,
years
were they
ago.
were a 6 seed?
That was the year with Cowher, I believe, in 05, where they were the 6th seed. I think
were
they were
a high seed in the other.
I think they were a number 2 seed when they won.
Okay, I just was thinking, like, even when they were like in the playoffs, I'm like,
I remember one of those they had to beat the Rex Ryan Jets at home in the NFC or in the AFC Championship. I'm like, Mark Sanchez, okay, not too much of a challenge.
Again, I am not a huge Mike Tomlin guy. Love his quotes. Love, everything.
We love the vibe, and we love Mike Tomlin's personality. Oh my god!
Like, trust me, if I was everyone about maybe 6 or 7 teams, I would fire my coach to hire him.
Yeah.
But when you get to like the tough game, like again, it just every season looks the same, and that's not a good thing if you're not Kansas City.
It's been since 2017 that they were like an elite team, and I believe that year they started 10-0 and then just completely faded down the stretch. So since that 10-0 start in 2017, they've been a slightly above average football team for that entire time.
Yeah, and it's just, for being a coach, like, because he is who he is, like, more responsibility. Like, oh, he hasn't had a quarterback, then get one. Like, I just,
hey, they got a former Super Bowl MVP.
Oh, they did. Yeah. Okay. I just like, I don't know. Because Steeler fans are everywhere. I've talked to just a couple I know, like family in the family or just know people. And I asked one about Tomlin, and they said the same thing. They're like it, but like, where are we going? Where are we going with you? Like, someone even argued like the one Super Bowl that he did win, like those were all Cowher's guys. Like it was all set up, and he just said, "Don't crash the bus." Like now that he's had his own guys, it's like it looks very.
He's in his 18th season, no losing seasons. Very impressive. When he was the Vikings defensive coordinator prior to getting hired by Pittsburgh, loved the guy. He turned around an awful defense, but it's like at some point they're going to need to draft a QB that isn't a Kenny Pickett type, or they're going to need to run a dynamic offense.
And
it doesn't appear like
organization.
And that's not what Tomlin does. Like he invests on the defensive line and wide receiver, I guess. I don't know. It's very strange that not only did they extend Tomlin, but they doubled down on their strategy of just having mid quarterbacks and,
it seemed like an organization very afraid to just start over.
Yeah, which they sorely need to, but
because they're in no man's land. They're picking 15th every year.
And like, maybe this is the year, though. Maybe they bottom out this year.
Someone told me this too, and it made a lot of sense. Like you tell about a coach is like week 1. It's like usually guys aren't as banged up. Obviously, it's just training camp. Like you have most of your guys, barring like training camp injuries. But like someone said it with the Niners last year, because like I was like week 1 last night, we're going to Pittsburgh. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be tough. Like,
yeah.
Like, and then I think the Niners won like 30-3 or 30-7. And they were just like, yeah, Kyle Shanahan had like 5 months to figure you out, and you had 5 months, and like it looked like that.
Yeah.
Granted, the rosters to me, obviously,
you were worried about that game.
I was like, because I think Pittsburgh also finished like 3-0 in the preseason. I'm like, okay, they're rumbling, and then it was almost like, honestly, I said it like after a couple drives, like Kenny Pickett looks like he graduated. Like, I don't mean in a good way. Like, oh, preseason was cool, and then it was almost like he saw no one on the other side the whole preseason, and was like week 1, he's like, holy crap. Like, look who's in the middle, look who's on the edge. Like, and it was like,
is that Fred Warner? Oh God.
He looked like, whoa, like I went to a different league. And but again, I don't think the rosters are the same, but again, at home to open up 30-7 or whatever it was against another, what you'd think a lot of people would argue Mike Tomlin's better than Kyle, which, maybe a couple years ago I would have argued because Kyle has his faults too. But I mean,
and I think he's fallen in the pecking order so far that end of season gauntlet is going to be the undoing. I don't think they'll fire Tomlin no matter how bad it gets, but I do think they're going to need to kind of rebuild that offense from scratch, and he hasn't been willing to do it. So these coaches who kind of run that CEO model, like it is time for a reorganization there, Mike Tomlin. Let's go over to the AFC West. So that was our AFC North preview. So I had Baltimore at 12-5, winning the division. So did Joey. I have Cincinnati 11-6. Joey had Cincinnati at 10-7. We both had Cleveland at 8-9, and we both had Pittsburgh at 7-10. So after last week, where we disagreed mightily on the AFC East, we're kind of getting back to normal here. So again, we both have Baltimore winning the division. We both have Cincy making the playoffs, and then we both have Cleveland and Pittsburgh missing the playoffs. Let's head over to the AFC West. We got to start with the defending, sorry to say, Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Their over-unders set at 11-5. Too soon. Sorry.
I actually rewatched some of it today. I don't know why I just did, and it's just like
you saw my situation with JJ McCarthy, and you were like, you know what? I'm going to make myself miserable too. Let's watch that.
Because honestly, it doesn't really. Sometimes, for most of the game, it doesn't make me miserable. It's like they played what I don't even. Never mind.
You're like, they should have won that fucking game. It's like, yeah,
I just.
The Chiefs come in at an over-under of 11.5, minus 550 to make the playoffs, 5-1 to win the Super Bowl. They are the runaway favorite in basically every category. Last year, they were only 15th in the league in scoring offense, second on defense, though. Here's a list of guys they've added on offense. Carson Wentz is now the backup. Hollywood Brown is in, but he's hurt. He just got hurt at practice yesterday. Irv Smith Jr., the former Viking, added his tight end depth if Kelsey were to go down. Rashee Rice suspension is likely coming. It's similar to the Vikings Jordan Addison situation where it's like we are just waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I think even if he gets suspended 6 games or 4 games or whatever, this kid Xavier Worthy is ready to step in. Kind of tailor-made for a Mahomes offense. Like he's an absolute burner.
Tailor-made.
Oh, God.
See, I was waiting for you to get it.
Oh, Lord. We're not starting with that in mid-August. That's painful. Another nickel in the jar. That's devastating. But yeah, I mean, like I said, their offense is going to be very good, barring a series of injuries. On defense, Spagnuolo's elite unit returns almost everyone. Snead is gone, but he was kind of struggling there at the end of the season, and he got a huge deal from Tennessee. So it's like, okay, makes sense. Another top 10 unit for them in store. I got them going 13-4. I got them as the number 1 seed in the AFC. This team is, until we see a significant drop off in play from Mahomes or until Andy Reid retires, they are the new Patriots. They need to be the Super Bowl favorite and the AFC West favorite every single year. Joey, what do you have for KC?
Yeah, I'm not going to make this more difficult than it is. I got them going 12-5. I'm not going to say 13-4, but 12-5 and win the division. Because the thing even last year is they got kind of crushed by the Raiders on Christmas, and it was like, oh, how we forget? It doesn't even matter.
We texted each other during that game. We're like, oh, the Chiefs' era is over.
They don't need the 1 seed. They don't need they're going to win the division. More than likely. And again, no one's going to beat them. I think if I was them, I don't know Patrick, but if I was them and judging from what I see, I think going for the first ever three-peat in Super Bowl history is something that's like a ace of spades. That's boop. Doesn't do much for regular season predictions, but yeah, they're ho-hum. I think it's a dynasty. I mean, they're
and if Worthy ends up being really good, come on, can they swing and miss just once in the last 7 years? I mean, man.
Yeah, No, I mean,
So here, look, this is why. By the way, later in the pod, we're going to have my picks. This is going to be one of them. Them over 11.5. Listen to after their at San Francisco game, which is week 8, their 7th game, or let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, week 7, their 6th game. So after at San Francisco, very tough game. At Las Vegas, home Tampa, home Denver, at Buffalo, that's tough. At Carolina, Las Vegas, Chargers, at Cleveland, that's tough. Houston, at Pittsburgh, at Denver. Like, I think they might win 10 out of the last 11, maybe 9. Okay, so I mean, if they're 3-3 after the Niner game, they're going to get over that 11.5 win total. I just think it sets up so nice for them in the second half. They can probably, towards the end of the season, not play as many snaps for Kelsey and maybe get Mahomes out in the fourth quarter or third quarter. You know, it's going to set up like one of those seasons for them. I know it's the NFL and there's no, load management, but I mean, it sets up so nice for them, which sucks.
I mean, it's so weird because, like, maybe it's because I'm probably a bigger football fan now than I was like in the big heyday of the Patriots, but they feel more of a sure bet than the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why.
Because it's less gimmicky. I mean, the Patriots would have, Edelman and Welker, and you're like, how are they doing this? It's like, KC, you're like, yeah, I know how they're doing it. They got the best quarterback, the best tight end, elite wide receivers, elite head coach, best defensive lineman. Easy.
Yeah.
So frustrating.
I mean, it's a machine.
Imagine being one of these other teams in the AFC West. Like, no matter what you do, as long as Reed and Mahomes are there, it's pretty much hopeless. The only team that I would say has any reasonable hope to make the playoffs in 2024 from that division would be the Chargers. I have them going 9-8. I have them competing for a playoff spot. I don't know if they get there, but 9-8 it would be a heck of a turnaround from a team that really bottomed out last year. Their over/under set at 9 plus 120 to make the playoffs, 45-1 to win the Super Bowl. Obviously, the big addition is Jim Harbaugh, and he brings Greg Roman with him. Harbaugh and Roman, as you know, as every 49er fan in the world knows, they're going to focus on offensive line and running game, and that's what they did. I mean, they brought in Joe Alt with a top 10 pick. They brought in Gus Edwards, Dobbins, Hurst, and Disley. So they add 2 more tight ends to that room. It's going to be, it's going to be a Roman offense. They are going to run the hell out of the ball, and they're going to ask Justin Herbert not to do too much, which his first 3 or 4 seasons in the league, he's been asked to throw close to 5,000 yards a year. It's a complete departure from that. I do think that this team is going to be significantly improved. They were 21st on offense, 24th on defense last year with a pretty bad coaching staff and bad injury situation for Justin Herbert. So stock arrow up. You're just in the most difficult division in the league to make any headway just because the team above you is not going anywhere anytime soon. It's a good hire for them with Harbaugh. They're going to win football games. His style of coaching and his style of offense is always going to be conducive to winning football games and possessing the ball and not turning it over. But do you see, Joey, anything with them in year 1 that indicates to you that this may actually be, a lateral move this year and that they're building towards the future? Or do you think Harbaugh will do like he did for the 49ers, like he did for Michigan, and just instantly improve the team significantly?
No, I think he's going to be a huge upgrade over what they've had. The Justin Herbert foot injury, like, it doesn't sound like it, goes away officially. Like, could be something that lingers. Makes me think that they're not as good. And then I was like, who's he throwing the ball to?
Lad McConkey,
Hey,
DJ Chark, Hayden Hurst, Will Disley. Okay.
I'm a big Lad McConkey guy. Yeah, no, I mean, really good offensive line. I think they have decent defensive players, but they're always hurt.
They added Poona Ford, Bud Dupree, Denzel Perryman, and Christian Fulton. Those are their new starters. Those are all veteran guys. Those are Harbaugh type guys. They're just grinders. Like, it's a decent team. It's just,
I think they go 8-9.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of where everyone has them at, 8-9, 9-8. I'm
just thinking that in Kansas City, what a shit division.
Yeah, that's another reason why we're betting Kansas City over is like there's a world where all three of these other teams are just awful. Like, I think the Chargers with Harbaugh will be good. I don't think they can be great yet, maybe next year. And then obviously the other two teams we'll get to in a minute. But boy, Kansas City just has. Last year was the year for that whole thing to fall apart, and it didn't, and they won the Super Bowl. And now this seems like so much easier of a season than last year was for them. So, oh boy. Chargers 8-9 for Joey, 9-8 for me. Instant impact from Harbaugh. But again, we've talked about this each of the last two seasons, almost every week. Does their lack of a home field advantage play any part in your not wanting to pick them to be successful that year? Because it does for me every year.
Maybe like one game a year, but not.
I feel like I downgrade them like a game and a half for sure. Just because it's like, I live down here. There is zero interest in the Chargers. They just added one of the 5 best football coaches in the world. Nobody gives a shit. Like, they have probably one of the 6 or 7 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Nobody gives a shit. Like, it's tough, man. Like, it's just tough sledding. They never should have left San Diego. They had real fans down there. It's rough. I mean, I got them 9-8. I feel like that's generous. Let's go to the Las Vegas Raiders, over under 6.5, plus 250 to make the playoffs, 90-1 to win the Super Bowl. I got them going 6-11. It's supposedly a true QB competition between O'Connell and Minshew. I would go with Minshew there. I think he was actually pretty damn good for Indy last year. Looking at that offense, apparently it's going to be a Stone Age offense. This is the reporting out of camp. I've been reading some Raiders stuff recently. I've got Raiders fan friends and family, and what's coming out of their camp isn't like, oh, who's going to be quarterback? Or do you think the defense is going to be good after they really finished the season strong last year? Dominating KC and really playing hard for Antonio Pierce. Nobody's talking about that. They're talking about the offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy, who comes over from Chicago, who if you want to take the architect of the last 2 Chicago Bears offenses and make him your offensive coordinator, very, very questionable move. Apparently, they're just going to run the ball. Alexander Madison was brought in. Zamir White's going to be their starting running back. They're going to play 2 tight end sets because they use first-round picks on tight ends each of the last 2 years. This is a rough situation. I feel like 6-11 is relatively generous. I think they could be significantly worse than that with this quarterback situation and offensive coordinator. Joey, anything to add on the Raiders for a team that surprisingly good defense last year under Pierce, but it looks like a Stone Age team this year?
I think they're going to really struggle to score points, and that's an understatement because I also don't think Devontae Adams is going to be there past the trade deadline. I got them going 5-12. I think Max Crosby is an elite football player. Big fan. Again, the 2 tight ends, Michael Mayer and then Brock Bowers. They got a lot of needs for drafting tight ends in the first round. They let Josh Jacobs go, which, I get the running back business of that, but I mean, you're going to downgrade from that. Aiden O'Connell, I mean, I like Gardner Minshew. I would take him too, but no, they're just – and I don't know, I did finish receivers, and the cigars, after like a couple regular season wins, I was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Out, guys.
The vibes there are just a disaster.
Like, what are we doing? Like high school JV here? What are we – like I get Antonio Pierce, like they kind of righted their wrong a bit, which I'm not sure was a wrong. When they, had the interim with Bisaccia and they let him go, and then they hired McDaniels. They were like, we'll keep the interim guy, but I'm like, again, he's probably by a country mile the worst coach in the division.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest Sean Payton guy right now, but he's better than Antonio Pierce.
Yeah.
And like I saw the show too, he was like yelling that Raider. I'm like,
It rings a little hollow. It kind of makes me happy though that the Raiders, since their move to Vegas, have just been an absolute tire fire. Like, it's what they deserve. Should have stayed no.
I don't know, and like I watched it too, and I'm like, Devontae, like you can say whatever you want. You look miserable. Like you
got 2 of the top 15 players in the NFL, and surrounding them with nothing. I mean, they added Christian Wilkins, that's great, but
he's a really good player.
That offense is just, oh man. It's just, I mean, I guess who's going to be wide receiver 2? Is it Jacoby Myers? Like that's
should be Brock Bowers or one of the guys.
yeah.
But yeah, actual receivers, him. I don't even know. Is Hunter Renfrow still on the team?
No, he's unsigned. Really unbelievable.
Nobody?
Yeah, I was like kind of like, hey, maybe the Vikings could take a flyer on him, but no. Yeah,
Wow,
I'm just
talking about a guy whose career just fell off.
yeah. Yeah, let me pull up the Raiders here. Okay, here's their wide receiver room. Michael Gallup was brought in and then promptly retired. Jalen
Like, I
Guyton.
hate it here.
Jalen Guyton, no. Jacoby Myers, mid. Trey Tucker, never heard of him. DJ Turner, never heard of him. Christian Wilkerson, oh, he's out of Southeast Missouri State.
I almost got in there.
Joey Moore, San Jose State, 32 years old.
They're just, yeah. I'll be like Mark Wahlberg, Invincible.
Yep, Vince Papali or what?
Yeah.
Yeah. What a great story. Went from bartender to wide receiver on a 6-10 team back in '79, whatever the hell that was. So yeah, we're
looking
both
at their depth chart on ESPN. It's just wild to me that the guy they took, Michael Mayer's like he's just backup. Which I mean, they run a lot of 2 tight end sets. He'll be playing.
That's what they said. Getsy is going to run 12 offense. I mean, it's always going to be 12 because of the capital that they've spent on tight ends. But I mean,
their defense really isn't terrible. Like
they finished 9th last year in scoring defense, really impressive. And then they had Wilkins. That we can't fault them for.
But their offenses might be the worst in the league.
There's a real chance they finish 32nd in offense. I mean, maybe the New York Giants can bail them out, but really rough. Let's go to Denver, the last team in the division. They're over under set at 5.5, the 3rd lowest in the NFL. Plus 475 to make the playoffs, 220 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. Last year they were 19th on offense, 27th on defense. It's a supposed 3-way quarterback competition between Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, and Zach Wilson. That's got to be the 32nd ranked QB room in the NFL. Decent running back and wide receiver rooms, but the tight ends and offensive line are horrible. This is all a product of having 50+ million in dead cap from the Russell Wilson deal just sitting there. They can't sign quality offensive linemen. They can't fill out the roster with top talent. It's bare bones on offense and defense. They were 27th last year. They make essentially no changes. They bring in John Franklin Myers. It's going to be a bad defense. It's going to be a bad offense. I think this is a sneaky shot to be the number 1 pick next year. I have them going 4-13. I have them with the 2nd or 3rd pick, but I could easily see this team being like 1-16, 2-15. I think Sean Payton is okay with that. I think, him going from a 5-win team to an 8-win team, people are wanting to see this trajectory. It's not there. He does not have the quarterback unless Bo Nix just comes out and is his new Drew Brees, which ain't going to happen. This is a down year, and this is a downward trending franchise. 4-13 for me on Denver.
I don't think they're that bad, but I think they're bad. I have them going 5-12. But yeah, I like Bo Nix probably more than the average person. But yeah, their roster's terrible. Not good. Like you said, can't sign anybody because they're still paying Russ. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a whole lot going as a franchise. Jerseys are terrible.
I mean, okay, let's look at their offensive line. Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, Alex Forsyth, Quinn Miners is actually a good player, and then your boy Big Mike McGlinchey. Tight ends Lucas Knoll and Greg Dulcich. Okay, defensive line, Zach Allen, DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, and Jonathan Cooper. I mean, it's just a roster that just nothing about it screams talent. The secondary, sure. I mean, Pat Surtain is one of the 5 best corners in the NFL, but I mean, man, it's just bare bones. That's what happens. It's bad general manager moves, compounding, and this is the result.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it out loud. That's worse than I thought. Yeah. No, I mean, I think their offense will be okay. I think they're what I read, there's a lot of people blaming Russ for a lot of those sacks, and maybe their offensive line isn't as bad as maybe the numbers indicate. Maybe Bo Nix moves a bit. I like Javonte Williams when he's healthy. Offense should be okay with Sean Payton, but yeah, defensively it looks like a whole lot of Pat Surtain and a bunch of mid.
Yeah, I mean, the more I look at this roster, I'm just like, other than Quinn Miners and Pat Surtain, I mean, Cortland Sutton, fine player. Marvin Mims has some talent, sure. It's bare bones. So yeah, I have
Might see them
4-13.
dangle Pat Surtain for something to kind of.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone needs a full blow up, it's them. I mean, they got to get all these, dead cap hits off of the books. They probably have to figure out whether Nix is the guy by next season.
Probably could get a 1+ for him.
Oh, some team,
I'd
some
give him 2
contending
ones.
team. Oh my God. I mean, well, the Vikings are not a contending team, but man, would I love to have Pat Surtain. Every team would. You want a guy to lock down the corner position, and that's just such a luxury for a bad Broncos.
It's crazy because it turns into that like football like GM nerd type things. Like, do you give 2 ones and pay the guy? Well, things to think about.
Yeah, it's like for that.
I know the
position
Niners kind of.
particularly.
I think maybe made a phone call for him, but last year at the deadline. But
After seeing the Brian Burns situation, they're probably like, yeah.
I think they wanted him too, Brian Burns, but went with Chase Young. We went on the dollar.
Yeah, pennies on the dollar, and that didn't exactly work out until the Super Bowl, where he was decent. Okay, so there's the AFC West. Joey has Kansas City 12-5, Chargers 8-9, Raiders 5-12, Denver 5-12. I have KC 13-4, the Chargers 8-9, Vegas 6-11, and Denver 4-13. There's your AFC West and AFC North previews from the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast. Let's get to America's favorite segment, Joey's Jack and the Bum of the Week. Some interesting candidates this week. It's kind of hard in the preseason to come up with good ones here. There's a lot going on, but there's also kind of not a lot going on. I put the Broncos' new uniforms. That's the one I would have picked. I watched that game. I think they played Indianapolis. Oh my God, those are awful. Like, to me, that's
I can't get over the mile high. Like the Nuggets do it too, but they put like 5280 right on the front of the helmet. I'm like,
it's a bad look, man. Like I had seen the renderings and the the videos they do in the offseason to hype up. They're like, buy the new jersey. And then when you see it in action, I was just like, God, those are awful.
It's funny. There's a lot of jerseys you see just shown on like the internet or whatever, and you're like, oh, that's like terrible. And then you see it, you're like, actually, you know what? Kind of pops. Mm-hmm. Or you'll be like, oh, that looks amazing. And then you see it and you're like,
this feels like Washington's old uniforms when they were the football team and the Commanders, or the first season of the Commanders. It's just so ugly. Like I saw that and I was like, that's their road one. So I pull up the home one. I'm like, God, that's somehow even worse. Like Houston has also done a rebrand this year. The Jets, to some extent, those are okay, but they're very safe.
Like the Jets. But the Jets, and like Detroit did it too, but they kind of went like back. Mm-hmm. More of like, because the Niners kind of, because like the Frank Gore, like Vernon Davis, like Jeff Garcia, like I look back, I'm like, those are ugly. Those are awful.
Yeah.
And like now they go like more classic, like
90s.
Yeah.
Early 90s, yeah.
Yeah, and some of these teams just want to I don't know, what are you trying to sell jerseys? You got to have a player someone wants to buy. Denver. But yeah, they're terrible.
Yeah, I saw you like the Jets ones. I think those are pretty good. The Houston ones, I'd give a 5 out of 10. They're average. I didn't really like the old Houston ones, to be honest.
Houston was like, I saw them online. I was like, oh, those are pretty cool. And then I saw them like whatever their game of the weekend just highlight. And I was like,
Denver's had kind of the same uniform design since the Elway days, since like the mid 90s. And then they switched from primary blue to primary orange recently. I'm like, okay, cool. This whole redesign I think it's like so bad. So I put that as one of the candidates. Now that I've seen them in game action, I'm like, they really it's bad enough that your team is bad and on a downward trajectory. To have your uniform suck too. Ugh. Preseason injuries. I put it on there. We'll talk about it a lot later. Oh my God, do they suck? Like, my excitement level for football went from 9 out of 10 to like 2 out of 10 in 5 minutes with the McCarthy news. But I mean, every year, nothing is worse than just getting that Twitter, pop up there, that ESPN alert, that Bleacher
I even
Report
thought
alert.
yesterday, they're like, oh, like 4 to 6 weeks. I'm like, it's never 4 to 6 weeks especially when they're like, well, we hope, but like, we won't know until we go in.
And it's 4 to 6 months. So he ain't playing this year. So yeah, preseason injuries. Jordan Addison, by the way, rolled his ankle today. I mean,
well, he should be good for next year.
At
least it happens now. Like I was thinking too, I was like, all right, cool, ready to go. And then they're like, oh yeah, Dre Greenlaw still with the Achilles from the Super Bowl, just running onto the field.
Oh my God. Yeah, preseason injuries in general always should be a Jack in the Bum of the Week candidate. And then Aaron Rodgers again, he's releasing. I mean, it's not necessarily him; it's like a biography someone else wrote, but it's a pseudo memoir that he's coming out with, and he deeply regrets saying he was immunized against COVID in 2020. Fuck you, dude! Like, God, just keep your name out of the news for 2 minutes. Like we do, Mike Tomlin. We do not.
When I saw the book, I was like, "Can you write a book about somebody if they don't like authorize it?" Or maybe he did authorize it. I always wondered, like, what if I just wrote a book about? How does that work?
Mike McGlinchey. Yeah.
What if I don't know? I have no quotes or anything. Just write a book. It'd basically be like a big long rant.
But yeah, that's the big takeaway is that, he doesn't regret not getting the vaccine. He doesn't regret lying to his teammates about it. He regrets the way he used those words in that press conference. It's like, oh, boo-hoo, what a great guy. But you're going with a different New York Jet related situation for your Jack in the Bum of the Week.
Yeah, this one to me was pretty easy. But the Jack in the Bum of the Week, we'll split it 50-50 between Joe Douglas and Haason Reddick. I kind of want to put more of it on the Jets and Mr. Douglas because it makes no sense to me why you would trade for a guy who clearly wants a contract that you don't want to give him. It makes no sense to me. It should have already been done before the trade even happens. That's how usually this works. Like, they sent him an offer, so I heard, and he declined it, and they just like, was that it? Like, maybe Reddick thought there'd be like a negotiation. He's saying they haven't really talked to him since like the trade went down, however so long ago. But yeah, it's just terrible. It's just stupid organizations do stupid shit, and this is one of them. And it's just like, yeah, I don't see it getting resolved. Like at this point, like
it's a gigantic unforced error.
Yeah, exactly. It's just so unnecessary. So unnecessary. And didn't they have the guy, I don't know if they traded him or he just left. Didn't they have like Huff last year, who was younger and like had a really good season?
Had a great year, and now he's gone.
And he's gone, and you're like, let's replace him with this guy who also doesn't want to be here. By the way, maybe there's something up with Haason Reddick. For a really good player, he moves teams a lot. Like he was Arizona, goes to Philly, and Philly, who loves their pass rushers, they're like, we'll trade you. Again, maybe he wants huge money. Maybe he thinks he's in the Myles Garrett, which is his numbers are arguably right there. I think I read he's like only one of 2 players or something with like 10 plus sacks last 4 years. Like he's consistent. He's there. But
a lot being made about the fact that his press conference that he had where he basically said, I'm so happy to be a Jet. I can't wait to get to work. All of that happened on April Fool's Day, and he hasn't spoken to the media since.
I didn't know that. That's wild. But yeah, it's stupid. It's just so dumb.
It's so Jets.
Yeah, it just is. Like, this doesn't happen to well-run teams. I mean, like, well-run teams make draft mistakes, free agency. It happens. Like this one.
This would not happen in Baltimore or Pittsburgh or the Pete Carroll Seahawks or what. It just doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. And well, that's why shorten the Jets pretty hard because
And our followers, well, boy, did they not like your Jets 6-11 pick. But this is Joey Moore has watched quite a bit of football, folks. He knows what the Jets do. He was ahead of his time.
I mean, this is part of it. It's just part of it. It's just like, because again, what gives you any indication that this stuff's not going to continue throughout the entire season?
Yeah, and fester into the season, and the locker room's going to be a mess. The Jets' vibes are already down with all the different Rodgers fiascos. He was jawing with his number one wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, at camp, and then this whole situation with Haason Reddick. So the Jets, Joe Douglas, and Haason Reddick, co-winners of this week's Jack and the Bum of the Week. Let's go over to my You Like That picks of the week. We give you two for each of the division preview podcasts. So we did 2 unders in the first pod. We did 2 overs in the second pod. I got 1 under and 1 over here. We're going to go Pittsburgh under 8.5. It's a brutal division. It's a brutal conference. You got an all bad vibes quarterback room going there. Tomlin's got to have a losing season at some point eventually. This is the year. Their final 8 games, they might go 1-7. Look at that stretch again. It's unimaginably bad, that final 8 games for Pittsburgh. So even if they're staying afloat or even playing well at the beginning of the season, just know that 1-7, maybe 2-6 finish is coming. So Pittsburgh under 8.5, to me, that's my favorite of the future picks that we've had so far on the pod since we started season 3. I really like that Pittsburgh under 8.5. I might put more than 1 unit on that one. That's a big one for me. And then Kansas City over 11.5. Again, Denver and Vegas are atrocious. The schedule is built in a way where they might win 10 of their final 11 games. I think if they're 3-3 through week 7, the at San Francisco game, they'll be fine. They'll easily get to 12 wins. I got them going 13-4. They could be even better than that. The division is bad. They're the best team in the conference. Unless there's significant injuries, I don't see how we lose that one. So I like Pittsburgh under 8.5, Kansas City over 11.5 for the You Like That picks of the week for our third pod here in 2024. Joey, your feels great, baby. Your wildest take you feel best about currently. We always say, man, it's tough to come up with wild takes every week. Like, you're not that crazy. Like, most of your takes are grounded in reality. This one, though, I don't know. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I tried to keep it with some of the division topics we talked about for this pod, but I feel pretty great about Justin Fields beating out Russell Wilson for the week 1 starter. Because I think there's more upside. I think, and I am not a Justin Fields guy. I think, like I said, they called him a weapon. I don't want my quarterback to be a weapon unless it's with his arm, and that's not Justin Fields. But I also think, from what I've kind of read about it, like the team likes it. The thing with Russell Wilson is just like, I don't think he's going to have any support from the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I don't think he's been in Pittsburgh that long to like completely just set that room on fire.
He's also like 10, 12 years older than every other guy in that locker room.
Yeah, players talk too. Players know around the league what this guy's about. Like, and part of me thinks like maybe Russell Wilson just can't not be that Mr. Unlimited guy. And like around the room, around the building, he still like thinks of himself like self and carries himself, which I'm all for having confidence and believe in yourself. But like, with Seattle,
it came off as inauthentic the last few seasons.
Very. And, I don't think Justin Fields is a franchise quarterback either, but he seems more authentic. He seems more like a guy, the team, wants to play for. And quite frankly, he might just be better than Russell Wilson at this point. I thought about it. If Russell Wilson doesn't finish the season as the QB1, where does his career go?
That might be it for him, because I don't think he's a guy who will be a backup somewhere.
No, I don't think he'd be a backup like in his own head. I also don't think a team like he checks all the wrong boxes for a backup quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I remember very different scenarios, but like people were talking about like if Kaepernick ever got back in the league, be a backup. Yeah, I don't really want CNN at my backup quarterback's locker every day. And like, is he really going to help? Like his thing, like wasn't Mr. Grind the tape, read a defense, throw the ball like, Drew Brees. Like he was very, very, very athletic and he had a cannon of an arm. Like
throws the moon ball like nobody's business.
Yeah. And it's just like, that's why guys like Chase Daniel are in the league forever. That's why guys like you want, the Niners now, Brandon Allen's a guy been around. Like CJ Beathard could have a long, like just sit down, shut up, hold a clipboard, and help the starter. Yeah. Like backup quarterback, like you're not like, oh man, we need to upgrade our QB room. Like let's get a really good backup. You want a solid one, but like in a perfect world, you don't want that guy being like, I think I'm gonna try and start this week. I'm gonna try and like
I'm gonna help this
not
team
how
win.
It works. Yeah, it's just like you want to be a guy like you want to be a
Chad Henne,
an assistant. Yeah, you do. Like that's what teams look for. And like Russell Wilson,
Tyrod Taylor is kind of the modern day version of that. Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor, Jacoby Brissett's going to have a long career if he wants it. Jameis Winston seems like a guy who might have long hard for a number 1 overall pick to just kind of accept that role. But like Gardner Minshew, like these guys will have careers if they want it. Russell Wilson, he's more celebrity than a football player right now.
And you have him losing out to Justin Fields. I mean, that's as low as it goes, man. You're in a quarterback competition with Justin Fields and you lose. That's probably the end. But like you're saying, I think there's a major disconnect between the way Russell Wilson carries himself, which in the 2012 to 2018 NFL was ideal. Nowadays, all the players are in their early 20s. He's 36. And this, super, rah, I'm the hardest working guy in the room. Are you going to join me? Are we going to, it's like, ringing hollow.
Remember week 1 of Denver when he was in Seattle, right? His first game was in Seattle.
Yeah.
And like the mic'd up or whatever caught him like on the bench being like, let him know, guys, run or pass. I'd be like, shut the hell up. Like, what is this? Like, baseball, they're like, oh, the pick off, like, you got to yell back on the bench. Make sure you're engaged. I'm like, can you imagine him, like, doing that, like, as a backup? Like, part of the reason why because he probably carried himself this whole way in Seattle. They just dealt with it because they were just dominant. Like, the problem is that he's not very good. Like, you can carry
That's
yourself.
The key problem.
Like, you can carry yourself however you want. You're throwing 40 touchdowns every year and we're winning playoff games. Be Mr. Unlimited. Well, I don't care, but now you're like, sometimes it looks, from people who know a whole lot more about football than I do, will say like the tape says this guy doesn't even know what he's looking at.
Yeah. It has changed so much. Yeah.
How the heck did he just own the San Francisco 49ers for like so long and he doesn't know what he's looking at?
It's been a precipitous decline.
Like, they had an elite defense, but like a lot of those games, as your brother would know, was like, he'd be like, bloop, 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 spin around like, woo.
It was, I would say 2012 to 2017-ish. It was the Legion of Boom and, Wilson too. And then 2018 through like 2020, 2021, it was Wilson was the star and the defense was okay, if not bad at some points. I think 2018, they were actually pretty bad. But like, all of a sudden, second half of 2021, all of the 2022 season, which was a nightmare. And then last year, I think last year was him putting all his chips on the table and being like, I can still do this.
I think that might be the best year he has the rest of his career.
And he was still like 18th in QBR, 17th in passer rating.
I don't know. There's got to be some type of like not like 30 for 30 documentary, but like what happened?
Universally agreed top 5 quarterback in the NFL for a decade. Immediately, without injury,
that's the thing.
A bum.
Like Deshaun, which as talented as he is, he didn't have like the highs that Russ had.
No. He made it to the divisional round once. This is a guy who went to 2
talented,
Super Bowls.
But like, who cares about talent? Like, Trevor Lawrence is talented. Like, who cares?
Is he?
Is he? That's a good one.
We sure?
It's just like, yeah, for a guy who nothing happened, injury or like, some type of like Tiger Woods car wreck, like nothing.
Locker room turned on him, personality.
But like, even the weird thing is they probably didn't even like him that much, like when he was good.
Yeah, but nobody could complain at that point.
I still can't get over Marshawn Lynch saying, like, yeah, I had to call his manager to talk to him.
Yeah. You got to go through team 3. You're like, oh boy.
I'd be like, dude, I lined up behind
Mike Tomlin must have said the day that they signed him, that shit ain't gonna fly. Because can you imagine Mike Tomlin being like, "Oh, I got to talk to my quarterback through his agent." He'd be like, no." I mean,
holy. The one thing Sean Payton probably, he's Captain Dick, so he probably was a dick to Russ. If he didn't knock it out of him there, but like the first year it wasn't. That's right. It was Nate Hackett. I was like, I feel so bad. I was like, yeah, I don't know. It's like that's the other thing too. I don't think Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith are going to help him.
Yeah, it would be better for both of them long term if Fields ended up finding something than it would be if Russ is the 17th best quarterback this year and they go 8-9. So, yeah, I like that.
That seems like exactly the type of Pittsburgh Steelers season that they're just lining up to have.
That's the Rooney way this past decade. So there's Joey's wild take. Fields beats out Russ for QB1. Let's close the pod with a quick, and I mean quick, look at the Vikings situation. I was just 9 different people texted me. I talked to my dad on the phone. It's just, you can't put it into words what it's like to be a Vikings fan. Like, you get something positive finally in a quarterback who we draft in the top 10, the first Viking quarterback ever drafted in the top 10. And he now has become the first quarterback ever drafted in the first round to miss his entire first season with injury. It's never happened before. Torn his meniscus.
NFL history?
In NFL history. And it's like, yes, guys have sat a full season because they're behind the starter. Guys have missed, significant amounts of games with injuries, but nobody's ever missed their entire rookie season as a first-round quarterback with injury until now. And, that's just the Vikings in a nutshell. Like, he was unbelievable in his second, third,
I don't even know what
drive.
Play happened. Like, he just all of a sudden he was like hurt.
I watched every play, and it was like, when exactly did it happen? They haven't said
he was injured post game.
It didn't come out until, so the game was on Saturday, and then on Monday they were supposed to have this night practice in front of the fans in Mankato where we do our training camp, and they're like, hey, McCarthy's not here, and then O'Connell goes, oh, he's got some knee soreness, he's not going to be in the night practice tonight. And so fans are like, oh, okay, that's weird. And then the next morning they're like, yeah, we're going to send him for an MRI, and everybody's like, oh, Jesus, could need I guess it's called a meniscectomy, which is a 4 to 6 week procedure. And I was like, okay, that's actually kind of a blessing in disguise, because then Darnold doesn't have pressure on him the first 4 weeks. And then when McCarthy comes back off of the IR or PUP or whatever, then there will be the QB competition. And then this morning, not only do they go, oh, it was a full tear and he had to get the procedure, he already got the procedure done last night and he is out for the season. There is zero hope of him playing this season. That's how we all woke up this morning in Viking land. So the preseason is not fun, man. It's just nothing good happens. He looked great. He threw 2 unbelievable deep balls. Justin Jefferson was on the call for both of them, doing like this, like for the third quarter, he was on the mic talking to our local broadcast team, and he was just so excited. He's like, oh my God, a guy who wants to throw the deep ball. Oh, this is amazing. And then boom, it's just all, it's the Sam Darnold show now. I had us going 9-8. I was ready for us to go 10-7 or better and kind of shock the world. I love Brian Flores. I love Kevin O'Connell. I thought McCarthy showed potential. Thought we have great wide receiver room, unbelievable tight end in Hawkinson, and some guys behind him that are okay. A surprisingly good defense with the best safety room in the NFL. Doesn't matter. We're screwed.
I don't have any positivity. It sucks. Sucks balls.
It's like,
to not make it to week 1, to not even make it to week 2 of preseason. Like,
yeah.
Game.
Yeah, we're like, this was the week. We're like, oh, okay, maybe Darnold will play a half and McCarthy will play a half, because we know what we have in Mullins and Hall. We don't need to see those guys. But no, now it's like, probably shouldn't have Darnold take a snap the rest of the preseason, because it's like, if we don't even have him, we're going to have to call the Falcons and be like, hey, can we get Kirk back? But like, oh my God, it's just devastating. I'm trying to think. Have you ever had this situation with the Niners or with the Sharks, where it's just like,
Well, Trey Lance was just ass.
Yeah.
But you
And look how that
Dallas.
works. Hey, maybe Jaron Hall will be the new Brock Purdy. Who knows? No.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny to watch Trey Lance play for Dallas and just be like, what a freaking whiff. I mean, just like, again, seems like a good kid. Seems like
Talent evaluators just whiff sometimes. There's just no way around it.
It's just like he was universally like, oh, like everything. And then just to be wrong on everything. Like, oh, like they see like a little bit of like,
as wrong as they were on Purdy, they were equally wrong on Lance.
Yeah. Everybody.
It's unbelievable.
Like, I just, other than that, I mean, you could have your bad picks here or there. But yeah, I mean, to trade what they traded, I mean, the only thing is Lance, but it's not an injury. It's nothing.
And by the way, you still went to the NFC Championship the season you drafted him. You still went to the NFC Championship the season after when he was supposed to be the starter. You still went to the Super Bowl last year with a guy that you drafted with the last pick in 2022. So, like, okay, maybe if the Vikings do well this season out of nowhere, it'll be like, okay. But I just don't see that happen anymore. I had him 9-8. I probably have him maybe 6-11, 5-12 now. Now that it's not just that McCarthy isn't going to play. It's that there is no option of bringing in an electric possibility. That's like you have Sam Darnold, who has been bad every year he's been in the NFL. Like, yeah, he looked okay in spurts with the Niners, but like I would look okay with that Niners team. It's like, man.
He had that week 18 game against the Rams last year. I was like, this guy's Super Bowl. And like, yeah, there's a difference between him and Purdy. Like, but I think he's a lot better than what, I think you are expecting. I think he'll be. I
mean, he had a horrible
He's still
situation
really
with the
young.
Jets. Yeah.
Like,
bad situation with the Jets, bad situation with Carolina. Last year, hopefully he learned some stuff from Kyle and Purdy and Kittle and all those guys, but man.
Yeah, it's just he's got talent.
What a fucking kick in the dick. Just brutal. Any Niners notes from camp as you've been following the team as they get closer to the start of the season?
Just like 149 injuries. That's why they canceled their joint practices with the Saints.
Apparently, they're getting a little bit closer to an Ayuk extension rather than the trade.
That's so weird. Like, that's all anyone's talking about here. I mean, Trent Williams is also not signed, which bigger problem. But Ayuk, I don't know. I think now more than ever he's just staying. I think in a weird way. I don't think he ever wanted to leave, and I don't think the Niners ever wanted him to leave either. But Ayuk's trying everything he can to get more money. Like, more power to him. And the Niners have said, like, okay, you want more money? Like, go look for it elsewhere. Like, we'll try and make you happy with money. He's like, well, I want money, but I also want to be here. He's like, I don't want to go to the Patriots. I don't want to go to Cleveland. Like,
I don't want to go to Russell Wilson.
Exactly. I was like, go to Pittsburgh, and the Niners are like, well, then come back here for $27.5 million and not 32. And he's like, yeah. I mean, I feel like if he was going to be traded, or like, because the Niners, if he wanted to be traded, I think the Niners would be like, let's just get it done. Get this over with. If you're another team, you probably want that. And I just, the fact it hasn't happened makes me think like something's
going to get done.
Or he just, again, plays on his 5th-year option and then tries this all again next year.
Yeah.
But I don't. Because I looked at it too. I'm like, the Niners really, I mean, if they do like on a discount, 26, 27, 28 million, Trent Williams gets in it, like, okay. Next year, I mean, like.
Purdy ain't getting that deal that he wants if they keep signing all these guys.
Yeah. It's weird for a team like really trying to win the Super Bowl, like has been for the last couple of years, and this year might be like, I don't want to say the last because like I do think they'll still be a good team, and also I just don't want to say it's the last as a fan, but like this being like clearly maybe like a last ride with this group, like they seem very concerned about the next like 3 to 5 years is what I'm saying. Like,
well, that's what makes them and Baltimore good organizations, and Kansas City. yes, they want to win this year, but they are looking to the future too. Like, I think most teams would have either traded Ayuk or said, "Oh, you're playing on that 5th-year
I would
option."
have been totally fine traded him if they would have done it at the draft.
Yeah.
Because then you could have got something for this season. If you trade him now, again, unless Pittsburgh, which seems like the only team left, wants to send us a player back.
Highsmith, yeah.
Okay, like, how does this help us this year?
Yeah.
Unless they like blew us out of the water with picks and said, "Here's 2 1s." Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, I mean, hey, at least, I mean, you got some injuries. At least it's not to the absolute core of the team, and devastating
We'll
for
see.
the future of the franchise.
Ricky Pearsall, I think, has been hurt like 3 times. Hasn't even been hit yet.
Yeah, we'll see. You guys had, joint practice canceled. We had a joint practice today with Cleveland, and a lot of former Vikings on Cleveland, with Kevin Stefanski being the coach there. And the Vikings posted maybe 15 times today on social media, like, "Oh my God, it's Zadarius Smith. Oh my, hey, look who it is. It's Kevin Stefanski." Oh, everybody just, good to see. Oh, we're getting some work in. Every comment on social media is like, "We're fucked." Like, yeah, that's football in a nutshell.
Who was the coach? Was it? I don't know who it was. It wasn't Dan Camp. Was it Dayball? Because I know they had, but it was like, I don't know what coach it was. Said like about like training camp fights, where he was like, if you're a starter and you fight,
it was.
He's like, you're gonna play the whole preseason, and if you're a bench player, you're gonna not play because you're not gonna get out.
Gerard Mayo.
I was like,
yeah.
I love that. Like, it's so stupid. Like, you're a starter, you want to get a fight? Like, I'll make you play the whole game.
I did see that on it was Gerard Mayo, and it's like, I'm so down on the Patriots, but the second I saw that, I was like, okay.
I was like, okay, I like that.
That's laying down the law. That's from the Belichick school right there. He's like, you are so fucked if you get in a fight. Love it.
I just love the irony. Like, oh, you're a starter, you're gonna play. Like, your punishment is you're gonna have to play.
And if you're fighting for a spot on this team, and
you want a job,
fight, you're just gonna sit there and do nothing. You're in timeout. Eventful week. We previewed the AFC North and AFC West. We gave you a Jack in the Bum of the week with Haason Reddick and Joe Douglas. We gave you 2 picks with Pittsburgh under 8.5 and Kansas City over 11.5. Joey said he thinks Fields is going to beat out Russ for the QB1 job in Pittsburgh. We went over the devastating McCarthy injury. Hopefully we have something positive to talk about next week when we go over the NFC North and NFC West, our 2 most important divisions. We may or may not have some special guests. We'll see. But big time podcast coming next week. And then obviously one after that, where we give you all of our records, our playoff predictions, our winners for MVP and Player of the Year and Coach of the Year and Comeback Player of the Year. All that stuff is coming up in a couple pods. But thanks for listening to not only this week, but the last 2 weeks of our season preview series. We'll be back again next week with our divisions, the NFC North and NFC West. We will see you then. Thanks again for listening to the You Like That Feels Great Baby podcast.